Dharma, incomparably profound and infinitely subtle, is always encountered yet rarely perceived. Now we see, hear, receive, and maintain this. May we all realize the Tathagata's true meaning. The Dharma, incomparably profound and infinitely subtle, is always encountered yet rarely perceived. Now we see, hear, receive, and maintain this. May we all realize the Tathagata's true meaning. The Dharma, incomparably profound and infinitely subtle, is always encountered yet rarely perceived. Now we see, hear, receive, and maintain this. May we all realize the Tathagata's true meaning. So we continue thinking, exploring, sitting with the teachings of Wenon this morning, the sixth patriarch. Such an important figure in the history of our tradition, an inspiring figure, a robust personality. A country bumpkin. A Cork City Football Club supporter. A Galway hurler. Interesting character, really, if you think about it. Known to shout up the dubs at various occasions. Wenon offers us a personification of the teaching of nothing special. Straightforward mind, ordinary mind. We come to this practice to be healed. And we come carrying all our karma, and we have probably some notion that this karma will, all be dealt with and all be tidied up and folded up and put to bed for the night. That's it. But this is a long path, and we're constantly working with our own karma, constantly. So we come looking for this great salvation, expecting
a Broadway musical of Kensho, you know. And what we discover in the practice is that there isn't going to be a big spectacle, that it's going to be very, very simple. It's going to be a much more modest affair. It's going to be ordinary. And the work that we have to do is very ordinary work, very worldly work. So the traditions, outside the tradition, I think this, particularly outside the Soto expression of the tradition, there's a big emphasis on the big Kensho, the big Satori, big awakening. But in our way, in our school, the Soto school, we don't really emphasize that, you know. What we emphasize is the straightforward mind that Weinon is talking about, this everyday mind, this ordinary mind. And Suzuki Roshi in Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, talks about weeding. This is the kind of work we're doing. It's just constantly unglamorous, you know. We're doing that weeding, and of course the nature of weeds is that we get rid of them and more sprout up. So this is the eternal bodhisattva vow applied inwardly, because remember, as we saw the other day, Weinon, he shifts the emphasis into starting here in our heart, in our mind, in our own heart and mind. So we can go out into the world prematurely with the zeal of someone who wants to save everybody. Maybe this isn't wise. Maybe we should do the work ourselves first, or simultaneously. You know, our desire for good can be fueled by an angry fire. And we can go out and have very noble principles that are informing our actions, you know, of eradicating poverty, saving the planet, striving for equality, trying to end political injustices. But too often, these, on the face of it, noble endeavours can be fueled by a hatred and anger. And the energy behind it, the source of this worldly intervention, might be from its very beginning in conception kind of gone wrong. So the work starts here, and it starts with ourselves. And it's hard work, because it's uncovering, it's lifting the stone that has been placed on the grass for so long that when we lift it up, there's all these insects riddling around inside. And we don't want to lift the stone because we don't want to look there. by lifting the stone, the insects will they'll find another rock somewhere else, and the sun will refresh the grass that's there. The yellowed grass will grow green again. But our own strong set ways often create a blockage. Our karmic entrenchment. We've picked it up to protect ourselves along the way. All of us, in our own way, have picked up things to survive. And these things were probably very useful and helpful. And they stopped us from damaging ourselves at some point, or from being damaged. But we're like that monk walking beside his older brother who carried the woman across the stream because she needed assistance. We're still carrying her across the stream. And it's time to set her down. What our tradition teaches us, all of us, is that we should hold our opinions lightly, and we should desist from discriminating mind. This is very difficult for all of us. But there's great wisdom within that teaching, because we create a space of a free space of observation, of seeing, and sometimes we see things clearer in that space. So what Weinon is saying to us is that now is the time. Here and now. And now is the time to set down those burdens we've been carrying for so long. For so long. That we are exhausted. We are exhausted. Our resources are depleted. But it's at hand. Liberation is at hand. Freedom is at hand. This is the great message of Weinon. This free mind, moment to moment. And what does paramita mean? Remember, this is the Mahaprajna Paramita Sutra of the direct teaching of the southern school of the Supreme Mahayana, the Platform Sutra. But what does prajna mean? Prajna means wisdom. At all times to keep your thoughts free of ignorance and always to practice wisdom. This is what we mean by the practice of prajna. One thought of ignorance and prajna stops. One thought of wisdom and prajna reappears. So we have this illusion that the enlightened master can't make mistakes. That the enlightened person has the job done. We never have the job done. This is the great teaching of Zen. We may be wise in one moment and ignorant in another. It's only this moment. This moment. It's only now. It's only now. A person whose mind is full of ignorance says, I'm practicing prajna, but prajna has no form. It's the nature of wisdom. And what does paramita mean? This is Sanskrit. In our language, we say, what leads to the other shore, which means what transcends birth and death. When we are attached to objects, we give rise to birth and death. So attachment gives rise to birth and death. Otherwise, the blockage is gone and it is moment to moment to moment to moment. Like a river, unhindered and flowing freely. We give rise to birth and death, like when waves form on the water. This is what we mean by the shore, this shore. When we are free of objects, there is no birth or death, like when a river flows on forever. So at this moment is my birth, and at this moment is my death. And at this moment, and at this moment. When there is life present, there is life, and when there is death present, there is death. But what is death? Death is the death of the self, which there is no self. Ultimately, the absolute perspective. No self, no death. Death kills death. It kills itself, death. In a vision, in a broadly inclusive vision of all things in all times, in all directions, in all manifestations, the 100,000 million dharmas are one dharma. And this dharma is the Dharmakaya. This is the ultimate truth. We never have left it, and we never return to it, because we have never left it. So the Pure Land is here. It's a matter of our eye being cleared, our vision, our perspective becoming free of delusion. Maha means great. The capacity of the mind is so great. It's like space. But if you practice empty mind Zen, you will fall into a featureless void. In this world of ours. So, this came up a little bit in Mondo yesterday. One-sided Zen. Fixated on sunyata. We can't even get attached to that. Otherwise we're caught. You see? Because in this world of ours, space has room for the sun and the moon and the stars. This emptiness of our nature is also like this. The sun, the moon and the stars. So emptiness is full. It is full. People who don't practice the way think of our Buddha way as a very negative approach to living and to reality. They see our black robes and our shaved heads and our sticks and our bowing and they think we hate life. And we talk that there's no self. That doesn't sound very good, really, if you think about it. We say that life is suffering, that it is dukkha, and that's a party pooping thing to say. You know? But this, you see, this is the emptiness. This is the form is emptiness. Shiki fui, kuku fui, shiki. We chant it every morning in the Heart Sutra. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. That's important. So, form is emptiness, but this emptiness is full of the moon, the stars, the sun. So this brings us back to life, and it brings us back to love. It brings us back to the beauty of the world. The incredible beauty of the world that makes us want to cry because it's so beautiful. We all get this. It's heart-breakingly beautiful because of its impermanence and its passing. Stephen Dedalus in Ulysses by James Joyce sees a child in the classroom and he says, and his heart is broken because he thinks, but for the love of his mother, he would be trampled underfoot by the ways of the world. He's a sickly boy, a weak boy, a vulnerable child. This is canon awakening. This is not pity, this is compassion. So we see this portrayed in Joyce's Ulysses. We also see, may or may not be true, a story of Nietzsche, the philosopher, the German philosopher, seeing a horse being whipped. And Nietzsche puts his arms around the horse and weeps. He's so distraught. He sees this, to the heart of things there. Maybe he's losing his mind at this point. But so the Pure Land is here, or not. at any moment. There's a Zen story about a warrior with a sword, a samurai, I think, and he asks the Zen master, what is heaven and what is hell? And the Zen master does something to make him angry, and the samurai takes out the sword in his anger, and then the Zen master says, "This is hell." And then the samurai realizes the error of his ways, and he sheathes the sword again. He says, "And this is heaven." Moment to moment. So Wainon's advice to us to be formless within the world of forms is to neither grasp nor reject. View all dharmas with wisdom, neither grasp nor reject them. This is the way to see your nature and become a Buddha. So, we could take the precept, any precept, in many ways. Take intoxication. We could totally avoid alcohol altogether, as many people do, for various reasons. And that's one, perfectly good way to live the precept. The other one is to use alcohol wisely. And this is another way. And in a way, this is what Wainong is saying in this instance, that not to be rejecting it or not to be grasping it. Some people have to reject it, they've not, or have made that choice, fine. But there is this other way as well. And I just use that as an example, so across the board, So this moment to moment awakened nature or otherwise, do we need a teacher for this? No, actually, we don't. We don't need a teacher if we can do it on our own. But most of us find a teacher a kind of a mirror to see ourselves in, So the teacher's there as a mirror to see ourselves in. And then at some stage the mirror has to be broken, because what we see in the mirror is a reflection, not the thing itself. Too often in spiritual paths and in the Zen school as well, there's a dependency grows on the teacher. This is very unhealthy. The teacher's job is ultimately not to be a teacher. The teacher's job ultimately is to walk away. And it's not really the teacher's job to walk away, it's your job to walk away from the teacher. Or, as is often the case, continuing that friendship throughout your whole life with your teacher and your teacher with you. But not a friendship of dependency. you know, you see kids still living at home and they're 48 years old, you know. You know what I mean? It's not really healthy. What does he say about the teacher? Page 25. Yeah, he also has some advice for the teacher here, by the way. He says, if someone holds a different view and lacks resolve, don't be foolish enough to teach them. So, he's basically saying some people cannot be taught. Do you know? And so it cuts both ways, doesn't it, really? It's, you know, it's rights and responsibilities, you know. We all have rights and we all have responsibilities, both the student and the teacher. His advice here is that some people don't need a teacher. They can do it on their own, you know. But he also cites that a teacher can be very useful. So the first part of the Platform Sutra kind of wraps up. He's put forward his basic reinterpretation of the precepts. You know, he's made them internal. The 4 vows, he's kind of made that internal. It has to do with your own work and your own self. He's talked about repentance. So everything that, you know, that happened in the ceremony last night and that's going to happen in the ceremony, it's the same ceremony, this sutra. It depicts the same ceremony, really. And he's telling us, you know, that liberation is available at any moment. This sudden enlightenment teaching. And he's saying that straightforward mind is the way, this direct, ordinary mind. And then he takes questions from some of the people who are present. So a magistrate asks him about Bodhidharma, and he has a particular question there. And then a question is asked about Avalokiteshvara. And this was the question Eduardo asked in Mondo, in public Mondo yesterday. Really. You know, Eduardo was saying, what is canon? You know, I used to believe in this, I used to believe in that, and now I have to sign up to this new set of beliefs, you know. Can I really do that? You know? And then I was suggesting that you don't have to believe in canon, that canon is almost like an archetype, a Jungian archetype, you know, for an energy, a force, a disposition, and that is of love and compassion. I mean, he puts it very simply, Wenon. He says, compassion and kindness are Avalokiteshvara. You know? He doesn't say Avalokiteshvara is a kind of god or heavenly being and we must worship her and make offerings to her and all this, you know, because she's out there and, you know, she'll do good, nice things for us if we make offerings to her. You know, traditional religious practice. Mm-hmm. See, what we're engaged in looks like that from the outside. Mm-hmm. That's why people look at it and they go, what are these people crazy? If our families could see what we've been up to this week, they would think we were mad. For our friends and family, you know, they think we were insane. Imagine where you work, right? People see at work, see what you've been up to this week.
That'd be great.
Human resources might be calling you in.
I'd lose a lot of clients. Maybe gain a few.
So on the outside it looks like one thing, but when you're inside you see actually what it is, you see what it is, like everything I suppose. So we're not worshipping Canon, and we're not bowing down to Avalokiteshvara or to Manjusri. Avalokiteshvara with her healing balm, Manjusri with the sword of wisdom. These are just symbols. These are manifestations of something else. Compassion and kindness are Avalokiteshvara. The self is Mount Sumeru. When you're sitting there, I have a unique view here in the teacher's seat when I see you all sitting zazen. It's actually very moving. It's you're sitting there like a northern and southern mountain range, with great nobility and presence. And it's really beautiful actually, and it's very moving. And this is your Mount Sumeru, the holy mountain. We are a mountain when we sit. We are the solidity of a mountain. So, I didn't have to answer your question, Eduardo, because the sixth patriarch has already answered it. So, I'm going to draw to a close and wrap up my Dharma talks for this session. Tomorrow we'll have a sharing circle instead, which would be nice because I could shut up. I can sit down and shut up. And so did everyone finish their haiku?
Yeah.
Yeah? Did everyone write their haiku?
Mm-hmm.
So these haiku, you can tell us about your haiku tomorrow. And you can share anything you want to share. In this circle tomorrow. So maybe there's an experience or an insight or something that you want to share with everyone. So the Platform Sutra, what we get here in this beautiful gift from the sixth patriarch is that this is a simple, direct path. It's a simple and straightforward path. It's not a path of great complexity and great graduation, step by step. It is a simple path that is available to you at any given moment. And this is great because any given moment finds us in all sorts of situations. So we don't need to be in a monastery in Tibet. We don't need to be in a Heiji. And we don't need to be here either. Wherever we are. Zen is a direct and simple path. It is an intuitive practice rather than an intellectual practice. So all our studies and theories won't help. And actually we know this, and that's why we started practicing probably, but then we forget it again and again. And then we we try and frame it as a philosophical proposition. Your teacher's a philosopher, you know. He's Taikyu, your teacher in Wales, is a philosopher, and I'm not sure if his expertise is Wittgenstein, but Wittgenstein came to the same. The great philosopher Wittgenstein came to the same conclusion, that some things cannot be spoken of. You know, in his, I think it was later Wittgenstein, was it, or I can't remember, in the Tractatus or
He can tell you.
Tractatus, was it?
Tractatus, there have been a lot of books talking, well, there's been a good few papers saying that Tractatus is pretty much a Zen book. It's in a slightly different form in later Wittgenstein, but
What's the philosophical investigations?
Philosophical investigations, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a little more obvious in Tractatus, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So he has this idea that, you know, best to remain silent on that which cannot be spoken of.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is the intuitive practice that Waynon is talking about. And Wittgenstein is a very interesting character. I mean, he lived in Ireland for a time. He lived in Connemara, where he used to feed the birds and look after the birds in the cottage he lived in. And the birds got full of trust. And Richard Murphy wrote a poem about this, that when Wittgenstein left, the birds had grown so trusting that they were all eaten by the cats, unfortunately. So, anyway, Wittgenstein, fascinating guy. Well, you know the Ashling Hotel near Houston Station in Dublin? He was a dishwasher there. And he took up manual labour, manual jobs. So there's something very Zen about that. Anyway, sorry, that's a kind of a distraction. But there are things that cannot be spoken. And this is where it is best to remain silent. Like the great layman Vimalakirti at the end of the Vimalakirti Sutra, who, in the presence of Manjusri and the great bodhisattvas, he was teaching them. He was a lay person teaching these great bodhisattvas. He had a higher wisdom. And his final teaching was silence. Now that would be a good time to end the Dharma talk, but I won't. Okay. So, not there yet. So this is an inner practice. It's a practice, it's your practice, and it's right now. I think that's really clear. It's your practice and it's right now. So it's not somebody else's practice. It's not someone else's responsibility. It's not someone else's fault. It's always someone else's fault. Now, people have injured us, but now let's see what we can do now. With some generosity of heart to ourselves and to others. So it's you and it's now. And this is a grown-up practice, and that's liberating. That it's you and it's now. So what brings us here? Bodhicitta. You know bodhicitta, the thought of awakening. And where does bodhicitta come from? It comes from the non-conditioned. So everything is conditioned. Our personal history, our likes and our dislikes, our dispositions, our opinions, our beliefs, our personality. These are all conditioned. But bodhicitta doesn't come from there. It's a mystery where bodhicitta comes from. But it appears, this thought of awakening, of waking up to the way things are. That's what brings us to the cushion, and it's what brings us to Zen practice. It's what brings us to Chukai. You know? Of course, in Zazen we're working with the conditioned, and we're observing it, and we're trying to not get entangled in it and let it, and from a place of wisdom and a place of non-attachment, we're just letting it play itself out. So this is not an intellectual thing, as I said. We've tried that intellectual thing and it hasn't worked, so let's continue to try it, but we know that we need another way as well. And this is why we come to the cushion. So Wenon, we followed him on his adventures this week, and we saw Wenon as a young person hearing a line from the Diamond Sutra and having an awakening experience, and then going looking after, pursuing that, finding the fifth patriarch, and then entering the monastery as a young man, working in manual labour at the lowest point of the food chain, if you will, lowest point of the hierarchy. And then he's the one who is the sixth patriarch. What's the Christian, there's a lovely Christian phrase about the rejected stone?
Oh, the stone which the builders rejected has become the cornerstone.
Yeah, so this is Wenon, you know. So he's the good for nothing. So is the kesa. It's the cloth that has been rejected. The kesa was traditionally made from discarded cloth, bloodied cloth used by women each month and discarded, graveyard cloth that was used to wrap corpses. It was all gathered, washed, cleaned, dyed and sewn together into the stone that had been rejected is the cornerstone. And Wenon is like this. So we saw him become the sixth patriarch. We saw him running for his life in the night, followed by people who were very angry and wanted to string him up because he had been named as the successor. They would not accept him. He spends years in solitude and then returns to teach. So, went on 6:38 to 7:13. What age does that make him? Who's sharp on maths? 6:38 to 7:13.
75?
Yeah.
What was it? 76?
76.
Yeah, he dies at 76. Yeah. Pretty good age for that.
Yeah.
So here he is. Magda, can you pass that along? They mummified him. And you can still go to southern China and see the sixth patriarch's body, mummified. There is Wenon himself.
Would that have been the tradition?
It was very unusual. This is considered a sutra, the words of a living Buddha. So he was considered a living Buddha. You know? he looks a bit worse for wear, really, doesn't he?
Yeah.
What do you think about it?
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not how I pictured him though.
Yeah.
Myozan,
Yeah.
do you know the practice of self-mummification among Zen Buddhists in Japan?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just kind of interesting that was kind of carried through even after,
Yeah, there's an awful tradition.
Yeah, it's very weird.
Yeah, there's lots of parts, I have to say, as a Zen teacher, there's lots of parts of the tradition that are problematic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I agree, there are. And one of the parts of the tradition that is problematic is its patriarchy. And the position of women in Buddhism has been very, very much a second-class position. It's been an oppressive position. Self-immolation is another practice where monks would set fire to themselves.
Was that in Zen? Yeah.
Lots of Buddhism.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen it in Zen, I have to say. Maybe there was, but well, in Vietnam, Vietnamese Zen, in Tien as they call it in Vietnam, there was self-immolation practices. In fact, there's a very famous photograph. Do you know that of the monk on fire? So, but the mummification has happened in various occasions, but I think it's unusual, you know.
We nearly immolated this week.
Yeah, we absolutely did. So Weinon ends his days, and he's mummified in Nanhuo Temple in southern China, and there he is, you saw him, and it's in southern China in Guangdong province near the South China Sea. It's in the northern part of the province. And in 1589, a Jesuit, Matteo Ricci, visited the monastery and gave us the first account of the sixth ancestor. It was in 1589, and he talked about him as a kind of a Christian ascetic, and he names him as the sixth ancestor. So that's where our Western awareness first came of Weinon. But his teachings are helpful in our lives. They're simple, they're straightforward, the straightforward mind. This idea that it's your practice and the practice is now, and right now your liberation is available to you. And this is a healing practice. There's a practice that is healing. Of course, part of healing is opening up the wounds, you know, which is the hard part. What follows is the healing. And see, that's liberating in a really true way. It's not liberating in the way of it's going to be easy and everything's going to be all right. It's not that. It's the truth. You see? It's going to be difficult. It's going to be hard. There's going to be pain involved. But it will be worth it. Because this is healing. And when you lift up that rock and the insects scurry away, then the sun will shine, the grass will grow again. That's love. May the merits of these teachings penetrate into each thing in all places, so that we and every sentient being together may realize the Buddha way. All Buddhas throughout space and time let's take 3 minutes to get a drink of water or use the loo or whatever, and then we'll meet outside and we'll have some outdoor Q&A. Thank you. We'll just leave the Zendo formally.